talking with Mr. Ronald Shannon Jackson at his house in Fort Worth. We were just talking about that Coltrane interview in Stockholm.
And I was referring to the fact that I've had the same situation happen to me where the interviewer breaks in foreign countries because they are not listening usually fully to the whole statement of the answer that they get that you've been asked to give an answer to something, but they have already come with a preset program that's basically within a time limit. And it's been I've had the same experience in radio and in TV where you've been cut off before you get through answering the question because the interviewer is not really listening to you. He's looking at a time to get so many questions in and get these questions in and get the answer almost like based on time. And what stopped us from talking about this for you to get the recorder was the fact that I was about to say that in the country of Singapore, they even asked me to record people, interview people. They wanted me to do interviews with jazz musicians.
With you asking the
me
questions?
Ask the questions, yes. And I gave it thought, but I was moving in so many directions especially at that time. It wasn't possible for me to really deal with what she was asking me. The time involved. I was traveling too much. I wasn't organized enough to do that. But I understood what the question they wanted, especially like in an Asian country where you do meet the interviewers, but in many countries it's homogeneous. The interviewers will ask you questions and think that from what they were partly listening to, it was time enough, it's time to go to the next question. And the next question might be so far around the corner from the one before that by the time you started crank up the answer for that, they ready to go to the next one, which is because of this preset attitude as opposed to just having some set questions that would actually bring forth more coherent answers from the person that's been asked to explain something, especially when you ask a musician something about music or their instrument. I mean, we're playing on them all the time, so it's like a conversation never ending, But interviewers don't, especially when you're in those kind of interviews, because certain times when you got interviews lined up, and the interviewers know it.
You mean one after another, and they're listening to each other give interviews?
Yeah, they're all sitting there, but one has the privilege. And then I remember in Kuala Lumpur, they actually blocked it off where I was in a room, But yeah, they do that, And so the question was how the interviewer kept breaking in because he wasn't listening,
So maybe their English wasn't to the point where they could ask a good follow-up question.
That is, I found that more to be the case because actually you have to, when you go to a foreign restaurant, a lot of time, and they bring in some, say if you go to a new Vietnamese restaurant, a New Mexican restaurant, and the person who is waiting on you has just arrived the last 6 months ago or so. Well, they first learn how to say yes and smile, and to say yes and yes and yes and more when you're not looking for a yes, you're looking for is this how is this prepared or so. So in other words, I'm trying to say they have a set pattern of answers, or pretending that they understand English. It's basically really what I'm trying to say. You'd be surprised many people they would come to you and they don't really understand English. They might understand 4 or 5 other languages much better.
Mm-hmm.
It might be sprechen Sie Deutsch, speaking parler français, speaking Japanese, but whatever it is, they might not understand English. And actually, in the early part of practicing Buddhism, I understood that too. You know, because a lot of the Japanese people didn't really understand English. I mean, they understand now, but we all have a tendency to act like we know. whether people know or not, you know.
Sure.
People, you know, some people, of course, they might not know what you're even talking about. They give an answer, try to give an answer. But yeah, it would be like a situation where it might be, and then you'd be in a situation where different people be standing there with the microphones. So there'd be a situation where it might be 4 cats standing there, each one of them have a microphone, but only one of them is asking a question. Or it might be a situation of 4 or 5 cats standing there, and 2 of them or 3 of them ask a question.
Mr. Monk, there's 88 keys on the piano. Would you like more or less?
it's
And he says, hard enough to play them 88.
right? You should have told ask Rachmaninoff or Horowitz. I don't even think he was trying to play the 88 of them. I think he got in and grooved on the ones he was into. But, you know, people ask those kind of questions. And the other thing is they send people to write about the concert who have no idea what your music is about. I mean, I know for sure because I had this friend, Elliot Fisk's wife, Lydia, in Germany. They lived across the street from the fellow who had got the job writing for the Cologne newspaper. Mm-hmm. Now, this fellow's father had become very wealthy, selling plastic bags of blood going, or something like that. You know. And he grew up on Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Stan Kenton, big band era, Woody Herman, you know, but mostly big bands. That's what his father liked. He heard that, right? Now, his first jazz concert interview is Ornette Coleman.
Which Ornette Coleman group? The one you were in?
No, the one after me. The one after me.
Prime time.
Prime time, because I was there playing with the Coding Society when this happened,
Okay.
and Ornette had already been there, you know, and not only did he not understand it, he couldn't hear it. It was electric, and so he was trying to write a review that would compare Ornette to Duke Ellington or Woody Herman.
I wouldn't mind reading that.
Yeah, but he didn't really hear Woody Herman or Duke Ellington either, which was the problem. I mean, jazz wasn't his cup of tea. He just got the job. So, you know, and I have other experiences where, you know, I know people didn't know anything about Paul Blair, who actually got me hooked up with Voice of America. That's how I was able to do a lot of those tours in foreign countries. In fact, I know it exactly because when I went to Africa, and most of the places I went to, the first trip was 7 countries. I didn't have to pay for about 2 of them when it boiled down to it, because I went to do radio interviews, and that was through Voice of America. Well, Paul Blair had quit and went, fell in love with a lady in Indonesia and the food and the climate and quit working with the government here and went there. A very lucrative job translating manuals on how to operate tractors and menus for restaurants in English. And so the point is, you have people when you go to these countries that understand, you can be talking to them and you think they understand what you're talking about. They don't know idea what you're talking about. I mean, if it ain't, and they have these set things that they have. It's like did an overnight, a few days study of you. They look at you, and you know, they can tell when you can ask them, say, water closet or something like that when you first started going to European countries. But in the Asian countries, you have to make. In other words, they don't know what you're actually saying, except for to say, Yes. It's almost like a continual yes, and no's are very few because they don't know what you're talking about. So you can run into problems too like that.
I can imagine.
And run into serious problems and situations. Well, I think I kind of picked up from you one day when you said something about I keep talking about the drug days, drug errors and so forth. So I just stopped talking about it.
I didn't say that as an objection.
A few days ago, actually it's past Saturday, I think it was. No, it was Friday, last Friday. I went out to Taiwan's house. He's the fellow I told you helped me with the other stuff. And he had this album book of the album covers of Blue Note Records. Mm-hmm. And he's very proud of it because he had it. It was just sitting on a display on a wall where no other books were or anything. So I picked it up and started looking through it. Right. I know I made a record with Blue Note with Blood. Although I knew it wasn't going to be in there.
Yours was that for the restarted Blue Note after '85?
This was in the late '80s. This was with Blood and Lanswell.
Okay.
And I have an album in New York, but it was pre-CD, just before CDs came out. Mm-hmm. Exactly. No, yes it was, because I never got a CD of it. Well, they might have made CDs, I didn't get any copy. Mm-hmm. But he started asking me questions because he liked that era, right? He's really into what we call the hard bop, East Coast jazz. And actually, I had mentioned you in the conversation. And the reason it came up because I was talking about your recording of the faculty members playing Along Came Betty.
That whole hard bop repertoire is played a lot around school.
Oh, it is the most played in New York. Has been ever since, especially after the passing of Art Blakely. I mean, that kind of ensemble sound. Mm-hmm. But looking through the thing, he had asked me the question. I said, look, man, most of this music was made on heroin. It wasn't the problem then. Things only become a problem when it's transferred to the white community. And at the time, most of these cats were getting that stuff together and playing. All that was cheap. And it was just a black problem. Like, it's the same as 5-6 years ago. Meth was not it was over there. The trailer park people did it, so it wasn't a problem. But now it's spread out all over the country, and it's a problem. Mm-hmm. Well, my point is this: it was so it was so cheap then. It was it was $2. They call it a trade bag you get for $2. So you didn't have to rob nobody or do the things that were created. And what really got created was by the federal government, specifically FBI, from what I was told. The FBI started hassling the mafia about it, who they'd given it to, and this is on videotape because you can see it on one of the like a history of Discovery Channel on when they talk about narcotics and stuff. How this one of the mafia men explained that they were given Harlem in exchange, the same way as the government traded off, gave Lucky Luciano, allow him to leave the country and get out of prison because he gave them information on how to get into the ports of Italy when the Nazis were occupied, because the Italians control the ports, right? So it's the same. It was the same type thing. So here you had a situation that was in the black community, and this music which was more still bring people more. The problem with it now is to bring people with like minds together, and that's not one that are acceptable. I mean, in a time when you want to divide people on gay marriage and other issues. So this music that was the pride of a people, that was respected in a whole different way. You had an environment where you didn't know whether you was going to, I mean, one of the last things you think about at any given point would be insurance. You had no need for, you didn't know what you're going to be eating that evening, what less known what you're going to be doing next week. So, I mean, I'm trying to say it was a life that was based on the immediacy.
You're talking about the life led by the musicians who did all that classic music.
Right. It was, there were issues that were involved. Yeah, almost all that music was made by people who were addicted to drugs or alcohol, or like John Coltrane, who was addicted to both. His real problem was, and the reason he became ill and passed so quick, because he had been addicted for a long time to heroin and alcohol together, and that took a toll on his body. Or if you read stuff by Lester Young and the rest of us, I mean, to go out and play in front of and to give every night, and that's what was actually being done. It's not like going and reading from a script. You know the script. It is about getting the script felt, heard, understood, and enjoyed by the people that you're performing for. And each night might be a different environment. I mean, on the other hand, we had a lot of 2-week engagements, you know. You travel out to the Chilean circuit and all that. When I got to New York, it was well known that if you recorded for Blue Note, Billy, I don't know if I should say those guys' names. But the cats I knew, the record company supplied the drugs because the record companies had figured out, especially those Blue Note record companies, which was, had the best attitude. Why they get the best music? Because they supplied the musicians what they needed. They figured better to give them the money to get what they need to get. Let's have some here, Now, that's how they produced and got that. Another scenario of the same thing, which I'm just seeing and thinking about to tell you now, is